Welcome to FileMan Sales Training. I'm Kerry McGovern, known in the records and information industry as the FileMan. During my 34 years as a RIM consultant, trainer, and salesman, I've trained more than 2,000 people in the art of the consultative sale. FileMan's training model is specifically tailored to records and information management. It emphasizes a measurable, multi-stepped model designed to assist the buyer in identifying his or her needs, and then suggest products or services that satisfy those needs. Consultative sales is a method in which a salesman plays the role of a consultant. As a consultant, we put on an analyst hat. Initially, we will not sell products or services or even features, advantages, or benefits. We sell a needs assessment or survey, which will deliver the buyer's actual needs. For some sales representatives, this approach is quite different than selling a tangible product. It requires that you act as though you don't have a specific solution for their problem or pain. It is true to say that you don't know what they need initially, regardless of what you sell. Of course, you do have a book of services and brochures in your briefcase. But if we pull one out too early, it could be the wrong one, and that could kill the sales call. What we're after in consultative selling is a comprehensive solution with a long-term relationship. The best adage to adopt is similar to going to a doctor. When you walk into an examination room, the doctor greets you and says something like, "How can I help you today?" You might say that I have a pain in my stomach. The doctor might do a cursory review of your vital signs and probably would recommend a test or some further examination. Why wouldn't he prescribe a pill or a treatment right here? Simple. It could be malpractice. He does not know what is wrong with you yet. It could be anything from something simple to something serious. So what does he do? He orders some tests and further examination in order to diagnose the problem so that he can provide a solution. For you to presume that you understand the buyer's problem on the telephone, or even in the first face-to-face encounter, may seem unfounded. Like the doctor, you will need to assess his problem, known in the sales world as his pain. The most common way to do this is to suggest that he allow you to conduct a needs assessment. This is usually at no cost to the buyer. But of course, it isn't free. It requires you to make an investment of time and talent to help in the decision-making process. It does cost you money and time, but you're willing to provide that in order to determine if you can help him. Most, if not all, consultative selling programs include a step-by-step approach. The FileMan program is a 7-step process. The key to success of any consultative method is that it must be measurable against agreed-upon benchmarks. If it isn't measurable, it cannot be managed. In order to maximize your results, you should use a contact and sales cycle management resource. The two that are most effective to use with this course are Act by Sage and Salesforce CRM. Both of these are inexpensive and have 3 features. The first component is contact management. This attribute enables the company to include in its database as much information as it can gather about the suspect, prospect, or client. It becomes a fundamental tool to collect and maintain information literally forever. The amount of data, notes, and information is unlimited, and it builds a historical flow of your relationship and encounters with the suspect, prospect, or client. The data and information is owned by your company and does not belong to the sales representative. You should consider it vital information. The second component is sales cycle management. This attribute allows the company to know where in the sales cycle the target is at all times. Regardless of how many steps you have in your sales cycle, you will know about every activity related to each of the target companies. Every entry in the database is both time and date stamped. It cannot be any fudging by the sales representative. It is a measure of his diligence. The prime question is, in a sales management meeting, where are you in the sales cycle with each target account? The answer should be clear and every step well documented into the sales tool. The follow-up question should be, how can we move the target to the next step? The third component is sales management. This allows the sales manager to be a coach and mentor to the sales representative. No longer is there any guessing about what has happened in the sales cycle, at what time, but a clear path to the next activity. These tools can easily take a snapshot of sales representatives' portfolio of prospects or drive down into a specific account. The sales manager can also look at the entire prospect database to determine the productivity of sales. With this tool, we can manage sales to specific expectations. The FileMan model is made up of 7 steps with activities, goals, and a timeline for each step. This model sets in place a benchmark to measure against. Step number 1 is titled Prospecting, converting a suspect to a prospect. Its goal is to set a first confirmed 15-minute face-to-face appointment with a decision maker. Step number 2 is titled Initial Face-to-Face Sales Call, developing and qualifying the prospect by selling a needs assessment. Its goal is to gain agreement from the prospect decision maker for the needs assessment by signing your non-disclosure and confidentiality agreement. Step number 3 is to perform the needs assessment and to confirm the prospect's interest and to gain commitment. Its goal is to understand the prospect's issues, pain, and implementation logistics, and to determine how your services may match the prospect's needs. Step number 4 is to gain prospects' agreement on the issues while formulating the solutions. The goal is to write carefully written issue statements regarding each issue, pain, or problem that you discover, and issues regarding the prospect's logistics. This is not a time to sell. It is a discovery process, not time to sell. All we want is agreement on the issues. Step number 5 is to create and plan the proposal and the presentation. The goal is to finish the proposal package, understand the issues, the solutions, the benefits, and the cost of the implementation, as well as all ongoing costs. An implementation logistics plan should be negotiated with the operations manager. Complete the presentation, cost-benefit statement, and its implementation schedule. Step number 6 is to present and negotiate a signed agreement. The goal is to understand the proposal, the solutions, and your agreement details completely. Be ready for any objection. Articulate the value of the deal to the prospect clearly. State the cost, both implementation cost and ongoing cost. Be prepared and confident about your services, your costs, and the value to the customer. Be prepared to negotiate terms of front-end cost and ongoing prices based on your authority. Step number 7 is to implement and gather a satisfaction assessment. The goal is to ensure that all aspects of the implementation plan are met, including conducting a satisfaction survey. And review the first invoice with the customer in a face-to-face meeting. You can expect from this course a full understanding of consultative selling, the steps and the activities that assure results. These are modeled after the best sales practices in use today. You will have access to collective knowledge of the best sales representatives gathered through decades of excellent selling skills. You will learn to become your own sales manager and how to manage a sales force. You will know and understand what attributes makes a good sales representative, how to incent her, and how to maximize your sales goals. Remember, in business, nothing happens until the sale is made. Welcome back to FileMan Sales Training. This is Kerry McGovern with an overview of the FileMan prospecting model and method. Let me begin by saying that the prospecting step is by far the most difficult to master. It certainly is the most important step, that is, up until we close the deal. Prospecting models change over time because of cultural and social mores. Prospecting in North America is different than in Europe, as it is from Latin America and Asia. What worked yesterday may not be right for today. Prospecting is always the first step in any sales cycle. That is, if you consider that sales is different than marketing. Marketing includes all of the activities and techniques that you use to prepare the prospect marketplace to sell a product or service. A sale is the art of closing a deal with a decision maker. So what is prospecting and how do we approach it from a records and information management services perspective? That always is the prime question. I will discuss this with you in 2 parts. The first is designing and adopting a prospecting model that will work for you. And the second is the method that you use to convert suspects to prospects. This requires a couple of definitions. The term that I use are not sacrosanct and may be adapted to your own corporate lingo. The eventual client proceeds through the sales cycle by first becoming a suspect. A suspect is defined as a company that may have a use for your services or products within your defined market. The suspect becomes a prospect when the decision maker agrees to a first 15-minute face-to-face meeting with you. And that activity makes step number 1 extremely important. Consultative sales can rarely be accomplished over the telephone or the internet. The prospect becomes a qualified prospect after she agrees to allow you to perform a needs assessment. Industry studies indicate that once a prospect agrees to a needs assessment, she is likely to be at a 75% close rate. The rest of the sales cycle is much more mechanical. What are the requirements for gathering suspects? It is essential that you, the owner or general manager, do 2 things. First, define your market, and second, determine your sales model. You can define your market in several ways, but the most common is based on a geographic selection. It could be the number of miles from your RIM services company. It could be a number of counties or parishes that create a logical marketplace, or it could be a more linear market that follows a trade route along a transportation corridor, or others defined by you. You must provide the market specification to the sales representative. Whichever you choose, you will assign market segments to sales representatives, usually in a horizontal or vertical manner. Horizontal typically refers to an area drawn on a map with defined boundaries, while vertical refers to certain market segments such as medical, legal, finance, and others. Of course, there are other ways to define it as well. Your sales model can range from the simplicity of go forth and sell to a structured or stepped approach. There are several selling models that work. The one defined in this training program works well for consultative sales. If you do not choose a model, you will not be able to measure to expectations. In this training, we will presume that you have a defined market and that you have chosen the FileMan sales cycle model and method. So where do we start? You can gather suspects from many resources. The simplest is the telephone directory or a Google search within a market or market segment. The simplest may also be the most costly. Some of you may have suspect information from other companies that you own or that you have strong ties with or investment relationships with. If you do have this advantage, it's always a good place to start. This list is called the Owner's Influence List. In my opinion, the best and most efficient way to gather suspects on an ongoing basis is to buy them from a commercial resource. To find these, simply Google search the words lead generation. There are several excellent resources that allow you to select whatever variety of leads you want with straightforward delivery or import into your sales management database. Even though these leads or suspects cost you out-of-pocket cash, each lead will provide robust information with much more depth of detail than you could gather from any internal efforts. From my own personal experience, the cost of buying suspect information is the least expensive option, and the information is much more comprehensive. How many suspects should I have in my database? At the beginning of the implementation of this sales and sales management program, you should have at least 500 leads or suspects for each sales representative. This will take you a bit of time to develop and integrate. As time goes by, you should have at least 500 and possibly 1,000 suspects in your database to keep the process going as you gather new prospects based on the agreed upon expectations that you have set with your sales representative as your benchmark. Once the suspects are imported into your sales management tool, ACT or Salesforce, you need to review and clean up the data. No file transfer goes totally as expected. There are always incomplete or errors in the data. It could be caused by the lead resource provider or by simple mistakes in the import process. Expect them. Needless to say, you should always start with a clean database. Once the data is scrubbed, take a look at what information or knowledge that is missing. The question is, what do you need to know to get in front of the decision maker? Typically, some information is missing. Some may be key components, such as who is the decision maker for RIM services. Of course, the basic information like company name, address, and phone number are usually correct even if you import them yourself from Google searches. There will be additional information needed, and the best way to get this information is research and hard, determined work. Once the model is complete, you can begin the method which is explained in lessons 1 and 2, titled Prospecting, Hunting for New Clients. In lesson 1 and lesson 2, you will know and understand the details of setting up the prospecting model and keeping it up to date, and how to successfully use the prospecting method. We will also discuss the selection of the tools that you will have: a good quality laptop computer, the scrubbed and clean database, a quiet place, DSL or cable internet access, a telephone without call waiting, a very good quality headset with 1 or 2 ears, depend on your hearing issues, and several other items. We will discuss the research method that will transform your call from a cold call to a warm call. Current sales cycle studies show that understanding your client by doing fresh research can bring your initial call success rate from 1 in 25 to 1 in 10, or even better. Success is measured by the number of first face-to-face appointments that you set. Remember that you are building a living database, which you will continuously add to over time. Each entry will make the next follow-up easier and broaden your scope of influence for years to come. Keep in mind that this is the most difficult step, and that it will be a challenge for even good sales representatives. For you owners, general managers, and sales managers, it provides absolute measurability for you, with total control over expectations and benchmarks. If it isn't in the database, it doesn't exist. Welcome back to FileMan Sales Training. This is Kerry McGovern again with an introduction to step number 2 of the FileMan 7-step sales cycle, titled The First 15-Minute Face-to-Face Sales Call. You've asked for only 15 minutes of the decision maker's precious time. The meeting may go far longer